Wiggins sizing up Murphy. Drives, floats, hangs, and scores on the turnaround. J-Dub way behind the three-point line and hits way behind the three-point line. Got blocked. What a rejection by Holmgren. Standing tall like a wall.
This is Dort. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Uncontested Post-Game Show, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network and proudly sponsored by Prairie Artisan Ales. I'm your host on this Wednesday evening, JD Silva, joined by Taylor Peterson.
You know, it was certainly a game of basketball that was played tonight.
That game of basketball was played against the Memphis Grizzlies, and we all know the voice of the Memphis Grizzlies, Chris Vernon.
If they pulled this off tonight, if they win, it will be the biggest win of the year by 100-fold. Mm-hmm. It won't even be close, and I'm not being hyperbolic. It will be remembered forever.
Folks.
Remembered forever, Silva.
They didn't win. The Thunder kicked their ass 120 to 103. We're going to get into that. Thank you, Chris Vernon, for just keeping the lights on for our podcast, for my mind. Before we get into this, be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating if you haven't done so already. Find us across social media, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc. Check out the Patreon. Scan this QR code. Click the link in the description of this episode. Join the Discord. Get the extra content. It'll be a lot of fun. Another classic against the Memphis Grizzlies. And I say classic in that I was very happy with the outcome. It was not necessarily, it was close for a while, but kind of ended up in domination, like how it has been, Taylor.
Ever since that blowout that you got to cover here, where the Grizzlies historically destroyed us here, what was that, 3 years ago now, which seems crazy.
Yep.
But Silva, I can't imagine being a team who has been in contention for the second seed in the West all season, and the highlight of your season potentially being a win against the Thunder in March, the shorthanded Thunder. Not that the Grizzlies weren't shorthanded themselves, but that being historical, one of the greatest, one of the biggest wins maybe in Grizzlies history. I can't comprehend that.
that kind of leads me to my big theme for this game, is that I don't actually have that many Thunder related takeaways from this. My takeaway is more about the stink coming off of the Grizzlies, and like it was just a eye-opening performance where, yeah, they did prop it up to be this some gigantic game. And they came out and just acted mentally weak the entire game. And you can see immediately where that's coming from in their head coach, Taylor Jenkins, and their star player, John Morant. No Jaren Jackson tonight. Thunder had no Chet, whatever. But that's what jumped off the page to me, Taylor, immediately.
You nailed it.
Front runners just getting upset about everything, causing problems for themselves, hunting fouls, just a whiny team, dude. I was so surprised.
It was terrible. And it got to the point there that Jenkins just went on a tirade, basically. And from that point forward, the refs started calling everything. Yeah. And Silva, I've been so defensive over the past couple of seasons, more so ever this season, about defending the NBA, its product, how the NBA truly is in a great place, but it just isn't advertised in the correct way. We're advertising the wrong things, and all the polarization on social media about the game has kind of led to this false narrative about it. Not, it ain't like it used to be, that kind of thing. But tonight on national television, on ESPN, you had a game that was just basically dictated by the refs that just completely disrupted all flow. I mean, it was an 8:30 tip off, and here we are podcasting at 11:30 because of how long it took. I mean, it was just absolutely terrible. Some terrible reviews that were unnecessary, some awful foul calls on both ends of the floor. I'm saying this is like maybe it helped the Thunder in some regards. I don't think they necessarily were at a disadvantage because of the calls. It was just awful to watch. So imagine being a casual fan tuning into this basketball game at 8:30 prime time on ESPN, 8:30 Central Time, and this is what you got to watch. You're thinking, yeah, all the talking heads are right, like all the discourse on social media is correct. Like it's horrific, and the refs have been worse than they've ever been. I mentioned that 2 nights ago when the Thunder played. Like it's unacceptable at this point. It really, truly is. The Thunder won by nearly 20 points. Like, I just mean this in terms of for the health of the league. Like, I don't know. That's my tirade to start the podcast.
I'm with you. And the Grizzlies, I'm kind of glad this was on national TV so that everyone could see Ja Morant and the Grizzlies and how they acted. The Thunder were in their head immediately, it felt like. They just could not handle the physicality the Thunder play with, which is so funny. Thinking back to the comments good old Chris Vernon made about the Thunder being soft. The Grizzlies are so soft and mentally weak, and it was like anytime they were fouled, the foul that started it all, the one that caused the blow up by Taylor Jenkins, Ja Morant just throws himself into J. Will, who jumps up vertically to try and contest the shot, and Ja gets laid out because J. Will's strong and Ja is, much smaller, and they just fabricated their own outrage. Like, they got mad at that instance that they created. It's like watching the WWE. Like, they got so wrapped up in that moment and it felt like they never moved on. The Grizzlies actually looked better when Ja was not out there. They went on their best run in the game at the beginning of the fourth when Ja was on the bench. Ja had the worst plus minus. Oh, actually, Luke Kennard had the worst plus minus on their team of minus 31. But right behind him, Ja Morant minus 21.
Oof. On much higher usage than Luke Kennard. I think your point still stands, Silva. And look, I think you bring up something. I think you bring up a good point because you look at the standings now after tonight. The Grizzlies, who were in second place, there for, a decent period of time, second place in the West, are now fourth in the West. 3 of 7 of their last 10. And Triple J gets hurt. I think there was just a lot of frustrations there for that team to begin with. The vibes were not good.
No.
But you know who vibes are good?
The Thunder.
The Oklahoma City Thunder.
So good, dude.
And so the Thunder now win their 5th straight with this game. And this is a stat from Royce Young that he tweeted out after the game. This is absolutely insane. After winning tonight by, 17 points? Yep, 17 points, 120 to 103. 40 of the Thunder's 51 wins have come by double figures. That's crazy.
That's absurd.
They've only won 11 games in single digits. Like, that is crazy.
And this game was uncomfortably close for a while. Even at the start of the fourth quarter, I was like, oh my God, am I like cursing this game by watching it? I like walked out of the room for a second and then came back and and I think it's because of the depth, to be honest. I think it is the depth that causes so many wins. Tonight, the guy who saves basketball every time he's out there, Aaron Wiggins, the closer, I guess, the momentum swinger. For a while, I kind of thought that was going to be Isaiah Joe. Isaiah Joe kind of this season has tended to be a little quieter out there. Aaron Wiggins just has all the confidence right now. And I kept thinking about this when I was watching him. This last 2 months of the Wiggins experience, 1 month, whatever you want to call it. His play style is reminding me so much, and they are not the same player skill wise. I totally get it. But Paul George, with the fluidity, the nonchalant way they play basketball, Wiggins is always just expressionless, chewing gum, and does everything.
Ever since he started chewing gum, that seems like a recent development. He has been on fire, and I like I said, I think a couple nights ago on the podcast, Silva, Sunday night when we were on our group pod, it feels like ever since that stretch there right before the holidays when the Thunder played incredible competition. Thankfully, all those games were at home. But he had that explosion against the Knicks and really hasn't looked back. And kind of like Daydont mentioned in one of his availability that he had with the media here not too long ago, here a couple days ago, he's like, basically, Wiggins has forced our hands to just play him regular minutes. He's a regular staple in the rotation. The defense still leaves a lot to be desired. For example, he left guys like Desmond Bane open way too often, but another great Wiggins game. You mentioned the depth, though, Silva. One of my bigger overall things before we kind of dive in into drill down to some of these individual performances for the Thunder. The pace of play. This Thunder team is so special because they can just, Mark hates this term, but it's so true. They can just flip the switch. when they're getting those stops defensively, or they're getting defensive rebounds off of missed shots because of good defense, they're pushing the pace and transition, and they're making some of those shots offensively. Like, they can just turn it on in a matter of seconds. And that's what we saw tonight. You know, like you mentioned, I think the Grizzlies got it down to single digits a couple times there in the fourth quarter, and the Thunder just go on a couple insane runs basically to put this game away. So the depth and the style of play. And I think the reason tonight, I mean, we've seen the Thunder struggle here over the past month or two, or really post All-Star break, just with kind of putting teams away, I think, for the majority of the game. But tonight, I don't think it was any like reason. There wasn't anything the Thunder were doing that resulted in them not being able to put the Grizzlies away. It was the choppy pace of play, the constant stoppage of play, and Thunder just weren't able to get into a rhythm until that fourth quarter, when the calls kind of slowed down. The Grizzlies weren't calling timeouts and, excuse my language, but bitching at the refs constantly. They were able to get into a little more of a flow and push the ball in transition and get out into transition. That resulted in the Thunder winning this game by nearly 20 points.
You're right. And the Thunder just never, ever lose their cool like the Grizzlies did. We watched the Grizzlies do that. The Thunder never do that. And it's because SGA never does that. SGA is always under control. SGA, even when he's not on the court, you can see the team never gets too out of sorts. And if a guy starts out slow, like a J-Dub, or has some... J-Dub had a pretty rough start. Like, we can say that.
I think he had a rough game.
He did have a rough game. He
had a solid stat line, but a rough game.
He ended up having a serviceable, I would say, fourth quarter. Like it was fine. But it's just the team keeps a level head at all times, because SGA keeps a level head, and they know he's always going to be there for them. And as long as they do their role to the best of their ability, they can like the outcome most of the time. And the outcome has been in their favor 51, or was it 52 times now this season?
Right.
The team is just...
Well, and I also love the relationship that Daigneault has with the team.
Mm-hmm.
He also keeps a level head in times of adversity when he's speaking to the team, but they also know that he has their backs when it comes to complaining to the refs or fighting for them on their behalf. And I think that's a really healthy balance they have there with Daigneault as well.
Yeah, I agree. You want to give out an award?
Let's do it.
King of the Prairie.
Let's talk about our sponsor tonight, Silva.
Yes, brought to you by Prairie Artisan Ales, who we dearly love, who we visited there last Friday?
Last Friday. Had a blast.
I had a beer that I really like. It was their, I forget the name of it, but it's the Mader Lao Kitchen. It's their partnership beer. It's a rice lager. It's delicious.
Really good.
On tap right now. Just kind of kept getting that. I tried a German lager also, or
that
a German
was great
beer.
Too. Yeah.
It was a Pilsner. It was awesome. Love Prairie. Shout out to them. It's time to name the king of the Prairie, though. Player who's the MVP of this game? There's a clear answer, as there almost always is, but
yeah, and I don't think I'm going to go with it, because, like we say often, you usually can give Shai this award every single game, just about. Tonight, though, Silva, I'm going with another role player, like you mentioned. You talked about the depth of this team, and the thing that I love is, even when certain players don't have it, the usual suspects outside of Shai, there's always some other role player that continues to step up. And tonight, for me, that was Jalen Williams, J. Will. 13 points, 4 rebounds, 4-4 from the floor, all those from 3. 4-4 from 3.
Yeah.
1 2 from the free throw line. He had 2 blocks. He was playing good defense. I mean, he still has his defensive lapses, don't get me wrong. But I think J. Will had a huge game. And honestly, his 3-point shooting there in the second quarter, which is probably the Thunder's worst quarter of the game tonight, is really what kept the Thunder alive there when he hit those 3-pointers. And I thought he was fantastic and deserves praise for how he played tonight.
Yeah, we do always make the joke that, like, you can tell how well J. Will played by the amount of threes he hit. But tonight he hit a lot of threes.
He did.
Awesome. He became Ryan Anderson in the second quarter and just kept the team afloat. Yeah, I don't mind giving it to J. Will at all. I don't think he's had one this season. So, hell yes.
Yeah,
let's do it.
You know, honorable mention to, like you mentioned, Aaron Wiggins, just to use this opportunity to dive into his stat line. 16 points, 6 of 9 from the floor. Very nice. 3 of 4 from 3. He had 1 steal, and overall, like you said, Silva, like, he kind of has been like a mini slump here over the past like 2 games. And tonight, he didn't get it going early, but he was just clutch when it mattered. And having that when nobody else really has it outside of Shai, I mean, that's huge.
Huge. Let me remove our graphic here because I cannot mention this player with the King of the Prairie graphic up. But I do have to say, J. Will kept the team afloat in the second quarter. And son of a bitch, Ousmane Dieng had a little renaissance there in the second quarter of this game. Played great defense. There was a play that I think was the best play of Ousmane Dieng's career, like the best 2 sequences.
The best stretch. Yep.
He like played insanely good defense on Zach Edey. Ran down the court, banged a 3.
Yep.
Like Ousmane Dieng. I didn't even think it was him. I was like, I don't know who that is, but that was great because I just wasn't paying attention enough at the time. And then I realized it was Oos when they showed the replay. I was like, I knew it was him that hit the 3, but I was like, that wasn't him that stopped.
Zach Edey at the rim. I mean, he was, like you said, he stayed
nice.
vertical. He contested the shot, resulted in Thunder getting a transition opportunity, which resulted in him hitting a wide open 3 in the corner. And that's exactly what you want to see from him in his limited stints. And we've seen that here now over the past couple of games that he's had. He's just playing with more confidence, which I think is really important. So to see him go down to the G League and kind of take advantage of that and then be able to come in while the Thunder are kind of banged up and, rotating through, resting some certain players. Tonight was Caruso and obviously Chet. For him to come in and provide that spark that he has and just keep the second unit afloat without Shai and provide another contributor on both ends of the floor when Shai's off the court. I mean, it's been really impressive. And so I'm curious to see how that looks moving forward, as I think there will still be a handful of games throughout the rest of the regular season where guys like Caruso or, J-Dub's been holding that wrist a lot. I think there's going to be opportunities for him to step in and provide more minutes as the Thunder just try and get healthy heading into the playoffs.
That's what March is for, I think. And, we're going to be seeing some Ousmane. And no one overreact to what happens in the month of March. I will continue to say that on this podcast, but we can have fun. We had fun tonight. We'll continue.
That's right.
iHeart had a nice little game, had the floater going.
I'm glad you mentioned him. That was next on my list as well.
Yeah.
10 points, 15 rebounds. That's what was huge is with Zach Edey on the court and some of the bigs that Memphis has. When you're short on bigs, iHeart just going down there and battling for rebounds was huge for this team. 5 and 9 from the floor. He also had 3 steals and 1 block, which is pretty awesome. And I was trying to look at his minutes because I felt like he played quite a bit. Sorry, I'm messing up here. Great podcast. Only 28 minutes. Yep. I thought he played more than that just because we saw him there with the second unit in the third and into the fourth quarter. But overall, I thought this was one of iHeart's better games, I think, here over the recent stretch. He just, like you said, looked more in form and just contributed at a very high level, being really the only true big for the Thunder tonight outside of J. Will.
The whole team kind of rendered iHeart and the team in general kind of rendered Zach Edey useless. And it's just really fun thinking back to, oh God, what a mismatch nightmare Zach Edey is going to be. But he was like 3 of 8 tonight and a -10.
I tweeted that out. I tweeted something similar out. I was like, remember when people were saying that Zach Edey should be a top 3 pick in this draft? Like, he's done some good things for the Grizzlies, especially early on, but he's certainly fallen off, and it's very easy to see why he will not be playable in the playoffs.
I agree. Who else from the Thunder? I'm trying to.
Let's talk 2 negatives tonight. Tonight. Let's talk 2 negatives now before we end on a high note. The 2 players that stood out to me for different reasons, and I didn't think they were incredibly great. Lou Dort continues to really struggle. He's going through an awful slump, both defensively and offensively. Now, like I said, the refs were calling a lot of touch fouls and kind of took Lou out of his game. I mean, he held Jaw to not a great performance, but only 3 points for Lou, 4 rebounds. He continues to rebound at a high level during this stretch, which is great to see, but 1 of 7 from the floor. All those were from 3, Silva. I don't mind all of Lou's shots coming from 3, but 1 of 7, just pretty terrible. Only 1 steal and 4 fouls. Like, Lou's just kind of going through it right now. I'm not sure if he's hurt. I don't think that's necessarily the case. He just kind of seems gassed, and not using that as an excuse. But I think Lou has been he hasn't been great over the past handful of games.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have a ton more to add. Maybe he still has the old mallet finger. I know he gave it to Drew Holiday in Boston.
Well, somebody in our Discord, another shout out to the Patreon and the Discord for those of you who want to subscribe and come and join us. Somebody said, "Can Lou Dort please get mallet finger again?"
No kidding.
Because he was shooting the piss out of the ball, to use a Russell Westbrookism, when he had mallet finger. It's kind of crazy. But he's going through a rough stretch again. I keep coming back to this. Players like Lou and some of these role players like Isaiah Joe, who's been out the past couple of games with back soreness. But I think those players are really going to benefit being back home, not on the road, back with the home crowd, and just a little more consistency. We see those role players step up during that time, and I think they really need it after being on the road for a long time.
Yeah. Is talking about role players and like stepping up, is Wiggins gonna end up being like the pivotal role player for this team in the playoffs?
I think it was our guy Jacob who said on Sunday's podcast that, or maybe he said in the Discord, I can't remember, but Aaron Wiggins will be a reason, or a big reason, that the Thunder win a playoff game in some series this postseason. I think that's completely correct. I mean, honestly, obviously Shai was incredible. We'll get into him, and J-Dub, like you said, played better in the fourth quarter, but it was Wiggins there when the Grizzlies were going on a big run in the fourth quarter that kind of stopped the bleeding and allowed the Thunder to be able to get back into position to kind of close the Grizzlies out and win by almost 20. So I think Jake was spot on with that. And I think you are as well. Like, I definitely think there's going to be some games in the playoffs that Wiggins contributes to at a very high level.
Nick Jordan asked, what happened to Cason Wallace? Did he get hurt, or did he just not play that many minutes? He only played 19 minutes.
I don't think he got hurt.
I didn't think so either.
I think Aaron Wiggins just stepped up there in the fourth, and Isaiah Joe, his spacing was really important to those lineups, and I think that's why we didn't see Cason. I think Cason's just fine.
That's about all I think too. We can quickly talk about SGA, who was dominant as always, 14 of 25 in the field.
Let's end on a positive note with Shai. There's one more negative I want to talk about.
Oh, yes.
I'll let you take us away, Silva. Again, I say this as a negative, and he still impacts the game at such a high level. But tonight was one of J-Dub's worst game in a while. 20 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists. That seems like a great stat line. But he was 7 of 17 from the floor, 1 of 6 from 3, 5 of 5 from the free throw line was nice. He's hitting his free throws again, which has been a good development. He had 2 steals and a block, but like ultimately just didn't feel like J-Dub's best game. Felt like he was forcing a lot there through the first 3 quarters and not quite getting to his spots. When he did get to his spots, he was missing. He was resorting to the fadeaway instead of like trying to get to the rim. And then we saw him be more aggressive and start to drive more and get to the rim and finish around the rim during the fourth quarter. And, that's what he's been doing over the past couple of games. He's been so great. And tonight he just got away from that a little more. And you can just kind of see it in his head.
Yeah, when he settled, when he did not settle, I thought he played really well. But the problem was he settled for a lot of the game on shots, especially the 3-point shot. I have to wonder, which wrist is it of his that's hurting? Is it his?
It's his right currently, because that's the one he has his shooter sleeve on. And we saw him holding that there throughout the first half and into the second.
I wonder how much that is impacting his outside shot, at least, because his outside shot has not. If you go back and watch, his outside shot when this season first started looked incredible, and it just looks a little different now.
It got better here, like over the past couple of weeks. I mean, it was back on track, and then he re-aggravated the wrist, or maybe it was the other wrist. I can't remember. But regardless, he had another wrist injury here. What was it, 2 games ago? And you're right, it hasn't quite looked the same. So 1 of 6 from 3 tonight. But again, he continues to impact the game at a high level. And he's a great defender. But it's just worth mentioning.
Even when the offense isn't there, he still is serviceable elsewhere. That's why we love J-Dub. Very toolsy player. SGA, incredible. He's the MVP. 14 of 25, 3 of 5 from 3, 10 of 10 from the line, 8 assists, 2 steals, 41 points. No big deal. Just another day at the office.
He had 14 the first quarter, and I think he only had 3 in the second. Maybe it was 2, and he ends up with 41 points.
He's insane.
On only 10 free throws. I mean, he made all 10, which is awesome. But I mean, it's just absurd what Shai is doing and the level that he's performing. Some of those shots he had, especially that one there, I think was in the fourth quarter, where he's like off the right elbow. He pulls up, he gets hit, he falls down and just drains it over the defender regardless. Like, it's incredible what we're witnessing from Shai.
He has somehow leveled up even further this season, and looking at him in comparison to Ja, who was as recently as just a few years ago was seen as they were seen on a level playing field, or some people would even say Ja was better a few years ago. And now it's just there could not be a wider gap between the two. I think Ja is like the second best player on his own team at this point. I think like
100%. He had 24 tonight on 8 of 22 shooting, and it's weird. I
don't like watching him play basketball anymore, dude. I used to love watching Ja, and he's just an unpleasant watch. Unpleasant.
Agreed.
But all right, feels good to end the show just lobbing another dart at Ja Morant. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. When is upcoming games for the Thunder?
I just pulled it up.
So what we got?
Friday, March 7th, the Thunder are back home against the Trailblazers, which is awesome. Then this Sunday, we'll be doing a post-game podcast after the Thunder play the Nuggets. It's a noon ABC primetime tip-off.
Wow.
So we'll be getting to watch that game Sunday afternoon and doing a podcast Sunday night covering that one before the Thunder turn around and play the Nuggets again at home the next night on Monday. So really good test for the Thunder there. Then they go on a bit of a 3-game Eastern Conference road trip, not East Coast. They have the Celtics, Pistons, and Bucks before they finally get a couple more games at home, a couple more away games, and then to end the month and head into April, they have a big home stretch, which is much needed. So I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent. All right. Thank you guys for listening. As always, we'll see you next time. As always, adios and Thunder up.